My cousin uploaded my infant's pictures online, declaring herself mama and accepting congratulations for finally meeting her tiny miracle. When I asked her to remove them, she just laughed, saying, "You're too dramatic." People obviously know I'm not his mother. I remained quiet. That was 4 months prior. This very morning, she was led off in cuffs, yelling words censored for the news broadcast. Can you imagine someone trying to steal your newborn baby? Not just physically, but his identity? Because that's exactly what my cousin tried to do. But when I fought back, trying to protect my son, her response plunged my entire family into a terrifying nightmare that I never saw coming. What the hell happened next? Lena, my cousin. Honestly, for as long as I can remember, she's been the most attention-hungry person in our entire family. She's 2 years older than me, and growing up, it was like she had to be first, she had to be the best, and she absolutely had to be the most noticed. I mean, we're talking next-level stuff. If I got a new toy as a kid, she'd literally snatch it, run to the grown-ups, and tell them it was hers. And if I dared protest? Oh, the fake tears would start. On command. She'd say I was lying, trying to get her in trouble, and the adults? They almost always fell for it. It was infuriating. Birthday parties? She'd be the one opening other kids' presents, posing for photos like they were hers. At family dinners, if someone gave me a compliment, about a dress, anything, she'd instantly swoop in with some snide comment, like, "Oh, she only looks nice because I helped her pick it." Which, she hadn't. Not even close. As we got older, her tactics shifted, but that core attitude? It never changed. If I posted something genuinely good online, like my graduation photo, she'd immediately post her own picture the very same day, with some cheesy caption like, "So proud of myself for everything I've accomplished." It was always about redirecting attention back to her. And when I got engaged, you won't believe this. She started telling people that she was helping my fiancé pick out the ring, that he'd come to her for advice. Total utter lie. She even made a Facebook post congratulating me, but, of course, she had to add, I basically set them up, as if she was our matchmaker. It was exhausting, honestly. Always playing second fiddle to her manufactured drama. Then came my pregnancy. And, of course, Lena made it all about her from the absolute moment she found out. I announced it at a family barbecue, and everyone hugged me. Except Lena. She just stood there, smirked, and said, "You'd better not name him something stupid." My blood ran cold, but I tried to ignore it. A few weeks later, I heard she was telling people, "We're pregnant, and I'm going to be like a second mom." We're pregnant? Are you kidding me? At first, I tried to brush it off. This was Lena, after all. Always dramatic, always chasing attention. I just figured she was being her usual self. But then, my son was born. And that's when things went from annoying to genuinely, unsettlingly creepy. I posted one single photo of him the day after he was born. Just a sweet, innocent close-up of his perfect little face. Within hours, mind you, Lena had taken that photo, cropped out my watermark, and posted it on her page. The caption? It still makes my stomach churn. Finally got to meet my little man. Mama loves you so much. That word. Mama. It hit me like a physical punch. My own cousin, calling herself my baby's mother. And in the comments? People were congratulating her. Saying, "I didn't know you were pregnant." And she didn't correct anyone. She just replied with heart emojis, things like, "We're so happy." Or, "It was a long road, but worth it." The audacity. The sheer, brazen lie of it all. I called her immediately. My hands were shaking, my voice trembling, demanding she take it down. And she laughed. Just laughed at me. "You're being so dramatic," she said. "Obviously, people know I'm not his mom. I'm just being affectionate." Affectionate. But she didn't remove it. No, she didn't. Over the next few weeks, it got worse. She kept posting more stolen photos. Some she pulled from my private messages to family, others she even got from my own mom. Can you believe it? And her captions? "Mama and baby cuddles. He's my whole world." Or, "First bath, so proud." Every single time, people would comment as if the baby was hers, and she just let them believe it. The absolute worst, the one that broke me, was a hospital picture. A picture of her holding my newborn right after I'd given birth. The caption, "Finally got to meet my little miracle." And the comments? "Congrats, Lena, you'll be such a great mom." And her reply, "Thank you. We're doing well." That was it. I had reached my limit. My tolerance shattered. I decided then and there, if she wanted attention, I would give her all the attention she could possibly handle. I painstakingly gathered screenshots of every single one of her twisted posts. I put them right next to my original posts, proving, without a shadow of a doubt, that I had posted them first. I blurred my baby's precious face, of course, but Lena's face? That was crystal clear. Then I made a very public Facebook post. I wrote, "Just want to clear up some confusion. This beautiful little boy is my son, not anyone else's. I carried him for 9 months, I went through 18 hours of labor, and his father is my husband. If you've been congratulating someone else, you've been misled. Please stop feeding into lies. Proud actual mom here." And I attached those side-by-side screenshots. Her posts right next to mine, with her absurd captions claiming motherhood. The internet, it exploded. Mutual friends were absolutely stunned. Comments poured in. "Wait, I thought Lena had a baby? That's so creepy." People were tagging her, demanding to know why she lied. A few even messaged me, genuinely apologizing, saying they had truly believed she was the mother. Within an hour, my phone rang. It was Lena screaming, "You humiliated me. You made me look crazy." My response was ice cold. "You didn't need my help for that, Lena." She tried to spin it, of course. Classic gaslighting. "I never meant to mislead anyone. I was just showing love." "You're twisting this." I just stood my ground. "You let people believe my child was yours for weeks, Lena. You never corrected them. You wrote captions in the first person. That's not affection. That's lying." She huffed, accused me of ruining her reputation, and then she hung up. Since then, she's deleted most of the posts and gone completely quiet on social media. But did she ever admit she was wrong? Not a chance. Some relatives, bless their hearts, thought I went too far by making it so public. But you know what? A lot of others were fully on my side. And I still believe, with every fiber of my being, if someone tries to claim your child, they deserve to be exposed. The best part? Now, whenever Lena dares to post something vague and attention-seeking online, someone inevitably comments, "Is this about your other baby?" Small victories, right? But just when I thought Lena couldn't possibly sink any lower, my phone lit up. A blocked number. And then a knock at the door. Not just any knock. It was Child Protective Services. My blood ran cold, fear gripping my chest. I opened the door to a woman in her 40s, holding an official folder. With a state seal. "Miss Torres," she said, showing me her badge. She was from CPS. My hands started shaking uncontrollably as she explained. They'd received a report. Possible child neglect. Substance abuse. At my address. The words hit me like a physical punch, knocking the air right out of me. Someone had called CPS on me, just 3 days after I'd exposed Lena online. Jake, my husband, came up behind me, and I felt him freeze. Absolutely freeze. He heard every terrifying word. Miss Torres asked to come in, to inspect our home, to see Ethan. Standard protocol, she said. But my mind was racing. This wasn't just social media drama anymore. This was a direct, malicious attack. I nodded numbly, stepping aside, letting her invade our sanctuary. Jake, ever the quick thinker, pulled out his phone, quietly starting to record from a corner. Miss Torres walked through our living room, her eyes scrutinizing everything. She went straight to Ethan's nursery, checking his crib for safety hazards, running her hand along the rails, testing the mattress firmness. I grabbed my phone and texted my mom, my fingers clumsy, asking if she knew anything about a CPS call. All while Ms. Torres took photos of our perfectly clean, organized room. She opened drawers, checked our diapers, wipes, clothes, making notes on her tablet. Then the kitchen. Inspecting our formula supplies, our bottle sterilization setup. Jake squeezed my hand. "We have nothing to hide," he whispered, but I was fighting back tears. Tears of pure frustration and fear, watching this stranger judge my parenting, my home. She even took a photo of Ethan's feeding schedule on our fridge. Ms. Torres then pulled out a checklist. Detailed questions about Ethan's pediatrician visits, his vaccination records. I went to the hallway closet, grabbed the baby book. Every single thing was in there, meticulously organized. Color-coded tabs, detailed documentation, my marketing background, it made me good at that stuff. She flipped through the pages. I could tell she was impressed by the thoroughness, but she maintained that professional, detached air, just making more notes. My phone rang. It was my mom, calling back, absolutely horrified when I told her CPS was in our house. She swore, absolutely swore, she had nothing to do with it. But then she mentioned Lena's mom, Diane, had called her earlier, crying about how I was attacking Lena online. I quickly put Mom on speaker so Jake could hear. Her voice was so conflicted, trying to stay neutral between her daughter and her sister. It was heartbreaking, honestly. Ms. Torres asked to see Ethan. He was napping upstairs. My heart pounded as we went up. She gently lifted him, checking his weight, looking for any signs of abuse or neglect. I stood there, fists clenched, trying to breathe normally. She examined his little arms and legs, checked his reflexes, noting he was clean, well-fed, responsive. Then, she turned to me. She asked about my mental health history, if I was taking any medications. I showed her my clean medical records from my recent OB/GYN visit. I admitted to normal postpartum anxiety, which, let's be real, any new mom feels, but nothing that required medication. Jake, bless his heart, chimed in, saying I'd been an amazing mother despite all the family drama. Ms. Torres typed more notes. I stared at Ethan's photos on the wall, and all I could think about were those horrible posts where Lena called herself Mama. Our house felt different now. Violated. Like it had been invaded. And a cold dread settled in. Was this just the beginning? What else was Lena planning? Finally, Ms. Torres asked about our family dynamics. Any conflicts that might affect Ethan's welfare? I hesitated for a second. This felt like telling a stranger the most insane, personal story of my life. But I did. I explained everything. Lena stealing photos, claiming to be Ethan's mother online. I watched the investigator's eyebrows go up slightly as she took detailed notes. Jake, seeing his cue, grabbed his phone. He pulled up my Facebook post, the one with all the receipts, all the screenshots exposing Lena's lies. He turned the screen towards Ms. Torres, scrolling through each image slowly, carefully. She leaned forward, studying them. Her pen moved quickly, detailing the side-by-side comparisons of Lena's posts, her mama captions, right next to my originals. She looked at us, asking, why would someone claim another person's child as their own? And there I was, recounting Lena's entire history. The stolen toys, the fake tears, the constant, insatiable need to be the center of absolutely everything. I told her how it had only gotten worse year after year. Ms. Torres nodded, kept writing, then set down her pen. She looked at both of us. Her expression was serious. She said the anonymous report had claimed I was mentally unstable, aggressive toward family members, that I'd threatened people, and that I was using drugs. My jaw literally dropped open. These weren't just exaggerations. These were complete, utter lies. Total fabrications that had absolutely nothing to do with reality. It was sickening. Jake immediately jumped in. His voice, usually calm, was getting louder with each word. He wanted to know if we could file charges for making a false CPS report. Ms. Torres held up a hand. She explained that she had to follow protocol, regardless of what she personally thought. She asked for Ethan's pediatrician's contact information, my doctor's, to verify medical records, to check on his well-being. Her tone was professional, reassuring us that this was standard procedure and didn't mean she believed any of the allegations. But my hands were still shaking. Shaking so badly as I wrote down all those phone numbers and names on the paper she gave me. It was a terrifying formality. She took the information, moving to our living room to make her calls. Jake and I were left in the kitchen, a heavy silence hanging between us. I picked up Ethan, trying to keep things as normal as possible, feeding him his bottle, even though my heart was racing. Jake paced, laptop in hand, frantically researching CPS procedures, false report laws. He was bookmarking page after page of legal statutes. He even showed me one site that said filing a false CPS report could lead to criminal charges, even jail time in Ohio. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Aunt Diane, Lena's mom, was defending Lena on Facebook, claiming I had publicly humiliated her, that I had started this whole war. Diane was telling everyone I was cruel for exposing Lena's innocent mistake, that family matters should be handled privately. That's when it hit me. My aunt had completely chosen sides. The family divide, which started with those stolen baby photos, was now turning into a massive, gaping chasm. Ms. Torres came back into the kitchen about 20 minutes later. Her paperwork was neatly organized in a folder. She told us she'd scheduled a follow-up visit for next week, but based on her initial assessment, she saw no immediate danger to Ethan. The case, however, would have to remain open for at least 30 days while they completed their investigation. Standard procedure, she explained. She handed us a thick packet, explaining the entire process, our rights, what to expect. As she gathered her things, heading towards the door, she paused. And then she quietly, deliberately, mentioned something. Filing false reports is a serious crime in Ohio. Her eyes met mine. It was a knowing look. A look that made it crystal clear she suspected exactly who had made that anonymous call. She suggested we document absolutely everything related to this situation. Keep detailed records of any harassment, any false allegations. After that door clicked shut behind her, I completely fell apart. I collapsed onto the couch, Ethan pressed against my chest, sobbing uncontrollably. The terror, the violation, the sheer injustice of it all. Jake wrapped his arms around both of us. His jaw was clenched so tight, I could literally see the muscles twitching. His entire body was rigid with pure, unadulterated anger. Our home. Our sanctuary. It felt violated. Contaminated by this horrific investigation. Our parenting, questioned by a stranger. All because of Lena's escalating lies and manipulation. Jake pulled out his phone. He immediately called his brother, who worked as a paralegal at a law firm downtown. He paced the living room, explaining the entire, unbelievable situation, asking about lawyer recommendations, legal options for dealing with this harassment. His brother confirmed this could absolutely qualify for a restraining order, especially with the false CPS report adding to Lena's pattern of harassment. He promised to email us contact information for several attorneys specializing in family law and restraining orders by morning. That evening, I scrolled through my phone. Dozens of messages. Mutual friends asking about the drama between me and Lena. Some people had already unfriended me. Just gone. Clearly choosing her side without even bothering to ask for my version of events. But others, thankfully, sent supportive messages, saying they couldn't believe what Lena had done, how shocked they were by her behavior. The social media battlefield where this whole nightmare began was now causing real, painful casualties in my actual life and my real-world relationships. It was a gut punch. Jake found me at the kitchen table that night. My laptop open, papers spread everywhere. It looked like a crime board from a detective show. I was typing up every single thing Lena had ever done since we were kids. Dates, incidents, screenshots of her posts, names of people who witnessed her behavior. Jake pulled up a chair. "We need documentation," he said, his voice grim. "For whatever comes next, legal or otherwise." By morning, that timeline was 12 pages long. Each incident worse than the last. A clear, sickening pattern of escalation that made my stomach absolutely churn. The next afternoon, Mom showed up. Bags of groceries. Dark circles under her eyes, like she hadn't slept in days. She put everything on the counter, then burst out. Diane had been calling her nonstop, screaming about how I was destroying the family, turning everyone against poor Lena. Mom's hands shook as she unpacked the milk. Diane was claiming Lena was having some kind of breakdown, and it was all my fault for publicly humiliating her. Later that day, as I was organizing all this damning evidence into folders, I found something that made my blood run cold. Old Facebook messages from Lena. Messages I'd completely forgotten about, sent during my pregnancy. She'd been asking super specific questions. My exact due date, which hospital I'd chosen, my doctor's name, what kind of birth I was planning. She even asked for ultrasound photos. At the time, I actually thought she was just being supportive. Sweet, even. But now I saw it clearly. She hadn't been supportive. She'd been gathering information, building a database of details to make her sickening lies more believable to everyone. The next morning, the doorbell rang. Hard. Fast. Jake was working, I was feeding Ethan. And there stood Diane, Lena's mom, absolutely furious. Before I could even react, she pushed past me, right into my living room. She started yelling, screaming that I was a bully, that I'd put Lena in the hospital for emotional distress. Jake came running from his office. He stepped between us, his voice deadly calm. So calm it was terrifying. He told her to leave. Immediately. Or he would call the police. Diane's face turned beet red. She insisted Lena just loved babies, that she meant no harm, that I had blown innocent affection completely out of proportion. She pointed her finger right at me. You haven't seen the last of this. Lena has rights as family to see Ethan whenever she wants. That's when Jake grabbed his phone and started dialing 911. That made Diane back towards the door, still screaming about how family should forgive family. He slammed the door shut so hard, the pictures on the wall shook. Then he immediately started looking up lawyers on his phone, while I just stood there, trying desperately to stop my hands from trembling. This was war. 3 days later, Jake and I sat in Michelle Crawford's office. She was a family law attorney my coworker had recommended. Our massive, overflowing folder of evidence was spread across her desk. She flipped through everything slowly, meticulously. Her eyebrows raised higher with each page. She made notes on her legal pad. Finally, Michelle looked up. She told us, with a grave expression, this wasn't just harassment. This was identity theft. Fraud. Filing a false CPS report. All serious crimes. She agreed to take our case immediately. We needed to file for an emergency protective order against both Lena and Diane. The false CPS report, she explained, would significantly strengthen our case. But she warned us, the legal process would take weeks. And during that time, Lena might escalate even further. While Jake stayed to discuss strategy and fees with Michelle, my phone buzzed. A text from my boss, asking when I planned to return from maternity leave. I stared at the message. How could I possibly go back to work with all this happening? I realized, with a sickening lurch, I'd need to extend my leave to deal with this escalating nightmare. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not a wink. I checked the baby monitor every few minutes. Jumped at every single car that drove past our house. Jake spent hours, installing new security cameras on every corner of the house. Changing all our locks. Even adding a heavy chain lock to the front door. Every shadow outside made my heart race. Was it Lena? Was it Diane? Our home, our once safe haven, was now a fortress. A fortress against my own family. Mom called the next morning, her voice thick with upset. Lena had posted something vague on Facebook about missing her baby and how some mothers didn't deserve their gifts. The comments were already filling up with sympathy from people who had no idea, telling her to stay strong. I took screenshots, of course, watching more and more people fall for Lena's manipulative victim act. Some were even attacking me in the comments, without knowing a single fact. A week later, Ms. Torres knocked on our door again, exactly at 9 a.m. Same clipboard, same professional smile. I'd spent the entire week meticulously keeping the house spotless, documenting every feeding, every diaper change, taking pictures of Ethan during tummy time, just in case. She walked through each room again, checking the locks on cleaning supplies, testing smoke detectors, watching me prepare a bottle while Ethan gurgled happily in his bouncer. She confirmed she'd called our pediatrician, Dr. Chin, who told her Ethan was hitting all his milestones and I never missed an appointment. Ms. Torres sat down at our kitchen table, asking if there had been any new incidents. I pulled out my timeline, the one I'd been relentlessly updating. Every Facebook post, every text message, and now Michelle's business card. She nodded, making notes, saying this pattern of behavior might help close the case sooner than expected. Right as she was telling us how well we were handling everything, my phone buzzed. An email notification from my company's HR department. The subject line. It made my stomach drop. Urgent meeting required regarding online conduct complaint. Jake, who was making coffee behind me, saw my face go white. He came over, reading the email over my shoulder. Someone had sent an anonymous complaint about my social media activity, claiming it brought negative attention to the company, damaging their reputation. HR, getting involved. Over this. It felt like bringing a spreadsheet to a family fight. Technically correct, maybe, but completely missing the point of whose baby photos started this whole god-awful mess. My hands started shaking violently as I showed Ms. Torres the email. I explained I'd been on maternity leave for 3 months, hadn't posted anything work-related. She immediately started writing faster, asking for a copy of the email. This kind of retaliation, she said, her voice firm, actually strengthens your harassment case against Lena. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They just came. I told her, voice cracking, how Lena was attacking me from every single angle. Trying to take my baby, my reputation, and now my job. Ms. Torres put down her pen. She looked me straight in the eye, promising she'd provide a written statement about the false CPS report from my lawyer. Jake was already on the phone with Michelle, pacing the living room, explaining the HR situation. I could hear Michelle's voice, clear through the speaker. Document everything, contact HR directly. This showed a clear pattern of harassment. We could add this to our case, she said, showing how Lena was intentionally trying to destroy my life, piece by agonizing piece. The next morning, I drove to my office. First time since maternity leave started. My evidence folder was thick, heavy with screenshots and legal documents. Tom Bradley, the HR director, met me in his corner office. His expression was serious. He showed me the complaint. Someone had sent screenshots of my Facebook post exposing Lena, but they'd carefully, maliciously cropped out all of Lena's original posts, the ones claiming to be Ethan's mother. Tom flipped through my evidence folder. His eyebrows rose higher with each page, especially when he saw the CPS report and Michelle's letterhead. He spent a full 20 minutes reading everything. Then he looked up, and the relief that flooded me was immense. My job was safe. For now. But he needed to investigate if the complaint constituted workplace harassment. He suggested I work from home, just until they figured out who sent it and if it was connected to my cousin. I sat in my car afterward, completely drained. Exhausted. It felt like I was fighting a war on every single front, with no end in sight. I texted Jake that I was okay, but I needed to stop at my mom's. I needed to see a friendly face. Mom's kitchen. It looked like a bakery had exploded. Cookies cooling on every surface, 3 loaves of bread rising. She was stress baking. Again. It's how she dealt with things she couldn't control since Dad died. She hugged me tight, then admitted Diane had been calling her nonstop, demanding she make me apologize to Lena for humiliating her. Threatening to cut Mom off from that entire side of the family if she didn't convince me to take down my posts. Mom's voice cracked as she told me the latest fabrication. Lena was telling everyone she was looking into adoption agencies. Diane was claiming Lena couldn't have children naturally, a complete lie. She'd never even tried or been tested. Lena's new story was that I had stolen her chance at motherhood by forbidding her from seeing Ethan, her nephew she loved like a son. Extended family members were actually starting to take sides. Cousins were calling Mom, asking if it was true I was keeping Lena from her practically adopted baby. It was insane. 2 days later, Jake and I walked into the Columbus police station. Another folder, even thicker now, full of screenshots, printouts, and Ms. Torres's CPS report. We were directed to Detective Brian Walsh. A guy in his 40s, looked like he'd seen it all, but, surprisingly, seemed genuinely interested in our case. We sat in his small office as he flipped through our evidence. His eyebrows, like Michelle's, rose higher with each page. He took notes as we explained everything. From the stolen baby photos, to the false CPS report, to calls about us being unfit parents directed to Jake's boss. Detective Walsh leaned back. He told us that making false CPS reports was a misdemeanor in Ohio. But with everything Lena had done, we were definitely looking at harassment charges, too. He said he'd need to interview Lena, track down those anonymous calls, which would take weeks. Phone records, statements. As we were leaving the station, we ran straight into Diane. In the parking lot, she had this smug, triumphant look on her face, like she'd just won the lottery. She actually told us she was there to file her own complaint about us harassing her poor daughter. Said Lena had documented everything we'd done to hurt her. Jake, without missing a beat, pulled out his phone and started recording. He calmly told Diane that filing false police reports was also a crime. Her face went slack. She got flustered, muttering something about just protecting her daughter. Basically, she admitted, right there on camera, that she was neck-deep in this entire, manipulative mess. Back home that evening, I checked my messages. Several cousins had reached out. With support. They said they'd always known Lena was crazy. And then they started sharing stories I'd never, ever heard before. How she'd stolen one cousin's boyfriend in college by lying about being pregnant. How she'd copied another cousin's entire thesis, trying to submit it as her own. How she'd faked having cancer in high school just to get out of taking finals. It was like a dam broke, and all these years of hidden Lena drama came flooding out. A week later, Michelle called with huge news. She'd managed to get phone records. The CPS report. It came from a phone registered to Diane's address. It proved it. Family members had made that false report. Michelle suggested a careful Facebook post, just about pursuing legal action, to let everyone know we weren't backing down. Within hours of my post going up, Lena fired back, with her own dramatic post, claiming she was the real victim. She posted old family photos, Christmas, birthdays, but she'd meticulously cropped me out completely, as if I didn't exist, making it look like she'd always been the center of the family. She wrote this long, rambling thing about how heartbroken she was to be kept from her nephew, who she loved so much. And you know what? Some distant relatives actually believed her. Started commenting with hearts and supportive messages. Then, things got even weirder. I got messages from 2 of my high school friends, asking if I was okay. Lena had been messaging them with old photos from sophomore year, making up stories about how I'd bullied her, stolen her clothes, spread rumors. They forwarded me the messages. It was clear. Lena was losing it, sending paragraph after paragraph of things that never happened, twisting every single memory to make herself the ultimate victim. That night, around 3 in the morning, Jake found me, sitting in Ethan's nursery, just watching him sleep, crying my eyes out. I was so scared. I told Jake, this will never end. Lena will keep doing this forever. Our son will grow up with this crazy woman trying to claim him. Jake held me tight. He promised we'd do whatever it took to protect our baby. Whatever. Even if it meant moving away, getting restraining orders. Whatever else we needed to do. Just protect our baby. 2 weeks later, I was in the courthouse waiting room. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the massive folder of evidence Michelle had put together. Jake sat next to me, going through his phone one last time, checking all the screenshots. Michelle reviewed her notes, the detailed timeline of everything that had happened. The bailiff called us in. I walked into that courtroom, my stomach churning with nerves. Lena wasn't even there. And that infuriated me. She caused all this chaos, and she couldn't even show up to face it. But Diane was there, sitting in the back row, giving me the nastiest look I'd ever seen from her. I took the stand. I started going through everything from the very beginning. Michelle asked questions about each piece of evidence. I showed the judge my original photos, Lena's stolen versions where she called herself Mama. I explained the CPS visit, how Miss Torres told me someone claimed I was using drugs. I talked about the HR complaint at my job, the one that almost got me fired during maternity leave. The whole time, Diane kept huffing, shaking her head, trying to make it look like I was lying. Then Michelle took over. She laid out all the evidence in this super organized, undeniable way. Printouts from mom groups where Lena was asking about custody battles for a child she didn't even have. The timeline showing how Lena's posts claiming motherhood started right after I blocked her. The judge kept asking about Lena's mental state, her delusional behavior. Michelle explained we'd tried to handle it privately, but Lena escalated to harassment, false reports to government agencies. The judge was looking through the evidence when, suddenly, Diane jumped up. And she started yelling. She's a liar. Lena is more of a mother to Ethan than she'll ever be. She deserves him. The entire courtroom just froze. Diane kept ranting. About me keeping Lena from her rightful place in Ethan's life. About Lena having more love for him in her pinky finger than I had in my whole body. The judge banged her gavel. Told Diane to sit down or be held in contempt. But Diane just grabbed her purse and stormed out, still yelling about a conspiracy against her daughter. The judge shook her head. That outburst, she said, just proved our point about the family's concerning behavior. After reviewing everything, she granted a temporary protective order against Lena for 30 days. Until we could have a full hearing. But she couldn't include Diane, she said, because most of the evidence was specifically about Lena. Michelle warned me. This was only a partial win. We needed to stay alert. Diane was still free to cause problems. Outside the courthouse, my mom was waiting. With Ethan in his stroller. She pulled me into this huge, bone-crushing hug the second she saw me. Something felt off about Lena not showing up to court, while her mom sat there, making a full-blown scene for her. It made me wonder if there was some twisted plan. Like Lena knew Diane would blow up and make things worse. Mom kept saying how proud she was that I'd finally stood up to Lena. She admitted she should have put a stop to this behavior years ago, when we were kids. That evening, Jake's parents showed up from Indiana. They'd driven all day, just to be here for us. His mom, Patricia, sat down at our kitchen table and pulled out her phone. She had something to show us. Something she'd discovered. She'd been using a fake account to monitor Lena's activity in these private Facebook mom groups. And what she found, it made my skin crawl. Lena had been posting for weeks, asking for advice about getting her baby back from an unfit mother. Describing Ethan down to the birthmark on his shoulder, a detail she could only know from stalking my private Instagram. She'd created this whole, elaborate fantasy where she was his real mother, and I'd somehow stolen him from her. And she was asking these random internet moms for legal advice about custody rights. Patricia showed us screenshot after horrifying screenshot. Lena describing my son. His daily routines. Matching exactly what I'd been posting to my close friends. In one post, Lena even claimed she'd been breastfeeding him. It was completely, utterly insane. She'd never been alone with him for more than 5 minutes. These other moms in the groups, they were actually giving her advice. Document everything, find a good custody lawyer. They had no idea they were enabling someone's terrifying delusions. Just as we were trying to process all of this, the detective called Jake's phone. A breakthrough. They'd traced the fake email used for the HR complaint to a computer at the public library. And they had the security footage. Clear as day. The video showed Diane sitting at that computer at the exact time the email was sent to my company. They had proof. Diane and Lena. They had been working together. Systematically. To destroy my life. To take my baby. I sat there at my kitchen table, a cold, hard realization settling over me. This wasn't just my cousin being jealous or wanting attention, like when we were kids. No. She and her mom had actually sat down and planned out how to ruin my reputation, how to make me look like an unfit mother, so they could somehow, impossibly, take Ethan. The same cousin who used to steal my toys and claim them as hers was now trying to steal my actual child. And she'd recruited her own mother to help her do it. That night, Michelle sent another email. More findings from her investigation into Lena's online activity. Lena had joined multiple forums about grandparent rights. She was researching custody laws in Ohio, trying to find some twisted, legal loophole to force access to Ethan. She'd been asking questions about how even aunt cousins could petition for custody if they believed a child was in danger, and whether a mother's mental health issues were grounds for removal. She'd even found some sketchy lawyer's website about alienated relatives and their rights to family relationships being protected by law. It was chilling. A month into all this legal madness, I tried going back to work remotely. But I kept checking our security cameras every 10 minutes. My laptop screen would show spreadsheets, but my phone? It displayed our front door camera feed. Jake noticed me jumping at every car that drove past. He started taking over most of Ethan's feedings and diaper changes. He installed extra locks on all the windows, bought one of those doorbell cameras that alerts your phone to anyone approaching. The bags under his eyes got darker each week, but he kept repeating, "We'll get through this together." Ms. Torres came by for her final visit. She spent 2 hours going through our house, watching me feed Ethan, asking about our routines. And then, she typed up an official letter right there at our kitchen table, stating unequivocally that the original report was clearly false. Made out of spite, she handed me the paper. "This will help your lawyer build the case against Lena," she said. A small, crucial victory. That same afternoon, my mom called, crying. Diane had shown up at her house, screaming, demanding she make me drop the protective order. Mom said Diane's face was beet red, her finger jabbing at her chest, threatening to tell everyone about something that happened 30 years ago if Mom didn't help her. Mom finally pushed past her limit, told her to get off her property, and called the police. Diane left before they arrived. 2 days later, I was scrolling Facebook. A post from Lena's friend. Lena had been admitted to the hospital. Exhaustion. A mental health crisis. The comments were a battlefield. People sending prayers, others saying I had pushed her too far by exposing her lies publicly. Jake found me, just staring at my phone. He gently reminded me, Lena did this to herself when she tried to steal our baby's identity. 3 days after that, Detective Walsh called. He was recommending criminal charges for both Lena and Diane, filing false reports, harassment, and conspiracy. He explained the district attorney would review everything, but warned us the process could take months, even a year. During our meeting at the police station, he showed us printouts. 12 fake Facebook and Instagram accounts Lena had created, using different email addresses. The digital forensics team traced them all back to her laptop and phone. IP addresses. Device fingerprints. She'd been using them to follow my private accounts, screenshot my posts, spread rumors that I was an unfit mother to our mutual friends. Walsh said this was cyberstalking. More serious penalties than simple harassment. I asked if she might actually go to jail. He shook his head. First-time offenders usually get probation and mandatory counseling. The judge would likely issue permanent restraining orders for both of them. Part of me felt a bitter disappointment. After everything they'd put us through, they might not face real consequences. That night, Jake and I sat at the kitchen table after putting Ethan to bed. We talked about it. Should we just move? Start fresh in another city? His job was fully remote. My company had offices everywhere. Lena couldn't find us. But then Jake said running away felt like letting her win. And we both knew deep down he was right. We were too tired to even argue. Went to bed without deciding anything. The very next morning, my phone rang. It was the daycare. The one where we'd enrolled Ethan for next month. The director's voice was serious. Someone had called, claiming to be Ethan's mother. Tried to change the pickup authorization list. To add herself. And remove me. The director said something just felt wrong. The woman couldn't answer basic questions about Ethan's enrollment. She'd asked for the caller's name. And the woman had hung up. Immediately. My hands started shaking again. My hands were trembling as I hung up. I immediately called Michelle. She said this is exactly what we need. To push for an emergency extension on the protective order. She started working on the paperwork right away, adding the daycare incident to a growing list of Lena's violations. And she mentioned something else. She was preparing a civil lawsuit for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Our therapy bills were piling up. I'd already missed 3 weeks of work dealing with this nightmare. It was time. The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following week. And when we walked into that courtroom, there she was. Lena. With her own lawyer. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed. She kept staring at me with this empty, unsettling look. And as the judge reviewed the papers, I saw her mouth the words, "He's mine." My stomach churned. Jake grabbed my hand so tight it hurt. Lena's lawyer stood up. Started talking about how Lena was suffering from mental illness, that she needed treatment, not punishment. Claiming my public humiliation on Facebook had triggered some kind of psychological break. Michelle shot back immediately. "Mental illness," she said, her voice cutting through the air, "doesn't give anyone the right to stalk, harass, or endanger a child." The judge nodded, reviewing all the evidence we'd submitted. After about 20 minutes of back and forth, the judge extended the protective order for a full year and ordered Lena to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. Plus, she had to stay at least 500 feet away from our entire family and surrender any firearms she owned. When the judge said the part about firearms, Lena actually laughed. Out loud. This weird, hollow, chilling laugh. Everyone in the courtroom turned to stare at her. Her lawyer quickly grabbed her arm, whispered something, but she kept giggling quietly to herself, even as we all filed out. Outside in the hallway, Diane was waiting. And she immediately started screaming that we'd destroyed her daughter. That this was all our fault for being so cruel. Jake pulled out his phone, started recording. She got right in our faces. Spittle flying as she yelled that she'd make our lives hell, and we'd pay for this no matter what it took. 2 security guards rushed over, pulling her away, escorting her towards the exit. She kept screaming threats over her shoulder. We went straight to the police station. Filed another report about Diane's threats. The detective added it to our growing case file. He mentioned the DA was very interested now, because the pattern of escalation and the conspiracy between mother and daughter, it was becoming undeniably clear. He said charges would likely be filed soon, which should have made me feel better. But somehow, it just made everything feel more real. And even more terrifying. In the car afterward, I completely lost it. Sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. Jake pulled over to the side of the road, holding me tight. I just kept saying, I want our old life back. When we didn't have to look over our shoulders every second. He was crying too, admitting he was scared. That he didn't know how to protect us from someone so unpredictable. But he promised we'd get through this together. Somehow. We drove to my mom's, Carol's, house to pick up Ethan. We found her in the middle of installing a new security system. She'd been getting weird hang-up calls at all hours. She felt like someone was watching her house. The installer was showing her how to use the panic button while she held Ethan. She looked so exhausted, so scared. And that's when it hit me. This nightmare. It had spread to everyone we loved. That evening, Michelle called. News from Lena's psychiatric evaluation. It had been expedited by the court. Turns out, she'd been off her medication for bipolar disorder for at least 6 months. Which suddenly explained why things had escalated so horrifically, so fast. Michelle said this might affect her criminal sentencing if charges were filed, possibly getting her treatment instead of jail time. But you know what? It didn't excuse anything she'd done. And it certainly didn't make us any safer. Later that night, I was rocking Ethan to sleep in his nursery, singing "You Are My Sunshine." Tears streamed down my face. I was whispering apologies to him. Apologies for bringing all this chaos and danger into his tiny, innocent life. Jake stood in the doorway, watching us. His own eyes red and puffy, looking utterly helpless. Our baby finally drifted off to sleep in my arms, completely unaware of the raging storm surrounding him. 2 weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights, constant checking of door locks. Then my phone rang. A blocked number. My stomach dropped. But this time, it was the district attorney's office. They were filing criminal charges against both Lena and Diane. The prosecutor rattled off the counts like items on a grocery list. False reporting to CPS. Harassment. Cyberstalking. Conspiracy to commit fraud. 3 more charges I couldn't even process. Jake squeezed my hand so tight it hurt. The trial, she said, would probably be in 6 to 8 months. And we'd need to testify. The thought made me want to throw up right there on the kitchen floor. The next morning, we drove downtown to the prosecutor's office. A grim, gray building that smelled like old coffee and copy paper. Miss Chin, a no-nonsense woman, laid out thick folders of evidence. Printed screenshots of every fake post Lena made. Transcripts of Diane's calls to CPS. Even security footage from the hospital, showing Lena trying to get into the maternity ward after we'd banned her. Ms. Chin explained Lena's lawyer would argue mental illness for a lighter sentence. But Diane? She didn't have that excuse. She was clearly thinking straight when she made those false reports. Within hours of the charges being filed, my phone exploded. Texts from family members. The Family Gossip Network, faster than CNN, had the news. My Aunt Linda called, crying, apologizing for not believing me before. She had no idea how bad things had gotten. My cousin Marcus texted, saying he was cutting off all contact with Diane's side of the family. He was on my side completely. But then came the angry messages. From Diane's sisters. Calling me a traitor. Destroying the family over petty jealousy. Saying I'd regret sending my own blood to prison. The family group chat turned into a war zone before someone finally deleted it entirely. Just like that, decades of family bonds shattered. Into 2 enemy camps. Mom showed up at my door 3 days later. Red eyes, shaking hands. She sat on my couch and admitted she'd started seeing a therapist. To deal with the guilt of not protecting me from Lena when we were kids. She pulled out a business card for another therapist, slid it across the coffee table. We all need help processing this trauma, she said. None of us can heal alone. I stared at that card for a long time, realizing she was right. This whole mess had broken something inside all of us. Something that needed professional help to fix. Everything stayed quiet for almost 3 weeks. Then, a knock at the door made me freeze. It was my neighbor, holding an envelope addressed to me. No return address. She said some woman had asked her to deliver it. My hands shook as I opened it. Lena's handwriting, sprawled across 3 pages of notebook paper. Rambling about how Ethan was our baby, how we were meant to be together as a family, how she'd be with us soon. I called 911 immediately. Jake grabbed Ethan from his crib, rushed him to the back bedroom. Both of us knew. This was a direct violation of the protective order. This could finally get her locked up. Detective Walsh himself showed up within 20 minutes. Gloves on. He carefully placed the letter in an evidence bag. His face grim as he read Lena's delusional promises about coming home to our son. He sat at my kitchen table, pulling out his notebook, recommending more security cameras. Maybe even staying with family for a while until they could arrest her. Before he even made it back to the station, his partner was already at Diane's house, with an arrest warrant for Lena. Lena tried to run out the back door, apparently. Got tangled in the garden hose. That night, the news showed Lena, in handcuffs, being led to a police car. Her hair a mess, her face twisted in rage as she screamed something the news had to bleep out. Diane posted her bail within 3 hours. But the judge wasn't playing around this time, ordering Lena to wear an ankle monitor and report to an inpatient psychiatric facility within 48 hours. I sat on the couch, watching the news coverage on repeat. Seeing my cousin, the one I'd grown up with, arrested. All because of her twisted obsession with my baby. And despite everything she'd done, a part of me remembered the little girl who used to braid my hair at sleepovers. A part of me felt sad for the person she used to be. Before jealousy. Before whatever mental illness took hold and turned her into this stranger who tried to steal my life. Jake's brother Tom came over the next week. With a financial advisor. They helped us set up an ironclad trust fund for Ethan. With security measures that would make Fort Knox jealous. We spent 3 hours signing papers. Papers that made sure no family member, no one, could ever access his money. Requiring multiple signatures for any withdrawals. We were building a legal fortress around our son's future. Every document we signed felt like another brick in that wall. Protecting Ethan from anyone who might try to manipulate or use him, just like Lena had tried to do. 1 month later, I sat in a cold courthouse room. wood paneling that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 70s. I raised my right hand, swearing I'd tell the truth about everything. The prosecutor walked me through every single post, every lie, every escalation. I kept my voice steady, even though Lena was muttering under her breath from the defendant's table, and Diane was shooting daggers at me from the gallery. I testified for 4 hours straight, going through every piece of evidence, every screenshot, every threatening message, painting the picture of how my cousin's sick obsession had nearly destroyed my family. When I finally stepped down from that witness stand, my legs were shaking. But I'd done it. I told the truth. And now it was up to the jury to decide what happened next. Jake took the stand next. I watched him grip the wooden rail. He described finding me curled up on our bathroom floor, sobbing after another fake CPS report. How he'd installed cameras on every door and window. How our happy little family had turned into prisoners in our own home. His voice cracked when he talked about watching me check the locks 5 times every night. About how I'd stopped taking Ethan for walks, too scared Lena might grab him. About the security system that cost us $3,000 we didn't really have. The prosecutor asked about the impact on our marriage. Jake looked right at me. He answered honestly. We'd almost broken under the stress. I'd blamed myself for not seeing how sick Lena was sooner. He'd had to take time off work to help me through panic attacks. When Jake stepped down, the detective took his place, laying out the evidence piece by piece, like building blocks of guilt. He showed the jury printouts of the fake Facebook accounts Lena had created to spread lies about me. Text messages between her and Diane, planning the false CPS calls. Recordings from our security cameras showing Lena driving by our house at all hours, even after the restraining order. The worst, though, was the recording he'd gotten from the daycare. Lena, on the phone, pretending to be me, trying to add herself to the pickup list, saying she'd lost her ID. Could they please, just this once, let her take her son home? The daycare director testified. They'd almost fallen for it, until they noticed the callback number didn't match mine. Then came Lena's turn. I had to dig my nails into my palms to keep from screaming. She stood there, in a conservative dress I'd never seen her wear, playing the victim. She claimed she loved Ethan like her own, that I was cruelly keeping them apart out of jealousy, that she'd only wanted to help raise him, that the Facebook posts were just her way of showing love. Her testimony got more and more unhinged. She went on, claiming I'd always been jealous of her, that I'd stolen Jake from her, they'd never even met before I introduced them, that Ethan would be better off with someone more stable. Her own lawyer kept trying to redirect her, but she just kept rambling about how she deserved to be in Ethan's life, how blood meant she had rights, how I was poisoning everyone against her. The jury took only 3 hours to deliberate. 3 short hours. When they came back, the foreman stood and read, guilty, on all counts. For both defendants, Lena got 18 months probation, mandatory psychiatric treatment, and a permanent restraining order, covering not just us, but any future children we might have. Diane received 12 months probation and 200 hours of community service for her part in the conspiracy. Outside, on the courthouse steps, I felt empty. Not victorious, just empty. Mom hugged me, and we both cried. For what we'd lost. Not just Lena, but the whole idea that family meant something. That blood bonds couldn't be broken. Jake held Ethan, 8 months old now, reaching for everything with chubby hands, completely unaware of the raging drama that had swirled around him since before he could even hold his head up. Jake kissed our son's forehead, and he promised him. This was where it ended. The cycle of manipulation and toxic behavior stopped with our generation. Our son would never have to doubt whether the people who said they loved him actually meant it. Michelle found us there. She mentioned the civil suit was still pending, but would likely settle favorably now that we had criminal convictions. The money, she said, might help with therapy costs and those expensive security systems we'd had to install. A week later, I went back to work in person. First time since this whole nightmare began. My coworkers, who had followed the case online, offered support and hugs. Tom, my boss, assured me my position was secure. Approved flexible scheduling so I could attend therapy appointments without using vacation time. I started seeing a therapist specializing in trauma and hypervigilance. She helped me understand that Lena's mental illness wasn't my fault. That I couldn't have prevented this by being a better cousin or setting different boundaries. She taught me breathing exercises for when I'd hear a car slow down outside and panic that it might be Lena. Helped me work through the crushing guilt I felt about destroying my family, even though I knew, deep down, I'd had no choice. 6 weeks after the trial, on Ethan's first birthday, I posted a simple photo of his birthday cake on Facebook. No baby visible. Just the chocolate cake with one candle. The comments? Purely supportive. No drama. No false claims. No one pretending to be his mother. I closed the app. Picked up my son from his high chair where he'd been happily banging a wooden spoon. Carried him out to the backyard where Jake was setting up a small table. Only Jake's parents and my mom were there. A tiny celebration. Compared to the huge party I'd once imagined. But it felt so right. Ethan laughed and squealed as Jake helped him smash his own little personal cake. Chocolate frosting going everywhere. His pure giggles filling the yard. For the first time in months, I felt truly present in the moment. Not looking over my shoulder. Not checking locks. Not worried about who might be watching. The restraining order paperwork sat in our filing cabinet, right next to Ethan's birth certificate and immunization records. A stark reminder of what we'd survived. But today wasn't about that trauma. Today was about our son's joy. His chocolate-covered face. The way he clapped his messy hands when we sang happy birthday. The simple, perfect normalness of a baby turning one, surrounded by people who actually loved him. Unconditionally. So, that's my story. My wild, heartbreaking, utterly unbelievable story. It's been a lot, I know. But if you stuck with me through all of it, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a family member cross a line that you just couldn't ignore? What would you have done in my shoes, especially when it came to protecting your child? Let me know in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts.